Birding.
Charity should begin at home. We, the political class, there has been a lot of discussions about Article 71 office holders, our remuneration and all that. And I really don't mind what my colleagues MPs will think or my colleagues in the party will think.
This is Top Story with Evans Mensah.
And Top Story is always brought to you by Vodafone. Together we can. Well, in the next 24 hours, Parliament will begin debating the controversial 2020 budget that may end with an approval or a rejection. But tonight, ahead of that crucial debate, pressure is mounting both on government and MPs to either reject the budget, scrap the proposed 1.75% levy, e-levy, or reduce it. Already, the Economic Fighters League and the Fix the Country campaigners are set to hit the streets this Friday in an attempt to force MPs to reject the budget. In fact, the MPP chairman of Parliament Finance Committee and former deputy minister who served under Ken Ofori-Atta, Kweku Kwarteng, had said he does not mind what his political party or his colleague MPs will think, as he's called for the executive and members of Parliament to take cuts to their benefits to show to the people that they are indeed carrying part of the burden imposed by the budget. Now, more from him shortly. But first, listen to one of those backing a reduction in the proposed 1.75% e-levy. He's the director of the Institute of Statistical, Social and Economic Research, Professor Peter Quartey.
I would have expected something between 0.5 to 1% on transfers. I think the 1.75 is on the high side. We are told that there has been a study to ascertain how much people are willing to pay to use the mobile money and other youth platforms. I would be very happy if this information is shared with the general public so that we are all aware, we are all informed about the basis for the 1.75. But I must say that I support any idea to raise money to finance the deficit. The rate can be reduced from 1.75 to 1%, and then it becomes a win-win situation.
Well, the minority in Parliament has already served notice. They will be rejecting the levy even before the debate starts tomorrow. Haruna Drisu is the minority leader.
My worry and concern is whether as a country we are not on a path to economic crisis, with growing public debt, which is nearly at levels that are not sustainable. Far back in 2016, the amount of money government spent on debt service was about 10.4 billion, rising to 16 billion in 2019 and to 21 billion in 2020, and probably this year around 25 billion, projected to close at 35 billion, with the Minister of Finance announcing a debt to GDP of 77% at 345 billion, whilst it's estimated by other economic aspects such as Moody's and Fitch that we're likely to end the year with 81% of budget deficit. We see the Minister of Finance in his effort to redeem the economy seek to introduce some measures, including the now popularly declared e-levy or digital levy. We in the minority may not and will not support government with the introduction of that particular e-levy.
Well, he will be on PM Express later tonight as we explore the minority's alternative. The Economic Fighters League and the Fix the Country campaigners are taking their opposition to the streets this Friday. They declared their intention at a news conference earlier today. Niaye Opare is the national spokesperson for the group.
Having analyzed the 2022 budget, we have come to the conclusion that the budget presents no hope for the people of Ghana. Its proposed policies and measures will exacerbate the plight of the ordinary man and increase the hardship on us. We accordingly reject this budget. We reject the Momo tax, or whatever it's called, the e-levy tax. We reject the bank transfer tax. We reject the increase in charges. In short, we reject the attempt to pile up hardship on the people and to deny them the right to the pursuit of happiness, freedom, and justice. We have, together with the fellow co-conveners of the Fix the Country campaign, scheduled a massive demonstration for the 26th of November 2021. It will be a massive demonstration to the Parliament House to tell the parliamentarians to their faces that we, the citizens of Ghana, are instructing them to reject the 2022 budget.
Well, Hadi Yakubu is with the Economic Fighters League and joins us on the telephone line right now. They have declared the intention today of hitting the streets together with the Fix the Country campaigners. Hadi, thank you for your time here on Top Story.
Thank you, Evans, and good evening.
Clarify for me, are you asking for a rejection of the e-levy or a rejection of the whole budget?
We're saying that the budget, we have taken it holistically and analyzed the proposed policies and measures, and we've come to the conclusion that the budget in its current form does not in any way present any sort of hope to the Ghanaian populace. And therefore, the budget should be rejected by Parliament. It should be, first of all, the most prudent thing is, in the face of all this opposition by millions of Ghanaians across the country, must send a signal to the finance minister and the cabinet and the president to withdraw the budget and rethink about some of these policies and make sure that they realign the budget to the needs and comfort of the people, given the current circumstances of hardship that we are in. Failure to do that, the parliamentarians are being instructed by those of us citizens on whose authority they sit in the House. They are being instructed to reject the budget outrightly.
So a rejection of the budget will also means a rejection of the 1 billion cedi annual fund that government announced in the budget for young people to create jobs for them every year, in addition to the negotiations with the financial sector that will also provide an additional 3 billion every year, also for that purpose, entrepreneurs creating jobs. You also want that rejected.
Evans, you and I have followed the political processes of economic management of this country for a number of years. And it is very clear that the Ghanaian politician has mastered the art of deception and is able to come out with slogans that have the purpose of bamboozling the public into believing that there is some scintilla of hope in whatever promises they are making. And if they are not able to fulfill those promises, all they do is either to blame it on the public, one, or explain it away, or rename it into something else. And that's exactly what has happened here. We saw the introduction of UBank, what has happened to UBank, that was supposed to make funding available to young entrepreneurs and businesses, SMEs. What happened to it is now being renamed UStart. And it's in the budget. The budget says that it's UBank that has now been renamed. Why has it been renamed? What are the outputs? What are the outcomes? There's no report on this. And there is clearly a deliberate attempt to use things like this to mar the the to lull the angst of the people against the increasing hardships that are about to be unleashed on them. In fact, that they are already suffering, but that is already that is now going to be exceedingly, increased to an unbearable level. These are the issues that we are.
So you believe the 1 billion CD annually for young people to create jobs and to employ
is a gimmick.
Is a gimmick.
It's a gimmick.
And you come to that conclusion
based on historical experience of how political operatives have used, measures and languages, PR, basically, propaganda, put in measures, put in sort of words that have very catchy names and are able to confuse the people, just so that people are able, people can forget about the hardships that are. Look, if somebody puts in, if somebody puts in a Momo tax, that is completely guaranteed money that is going to be deducted from meager money that I send to my mother in the village, that a NABCO trainee that is earning only 700 cedis, which in itself is an insult. But even that is going to be taxed if the person is sending part of it to his mother in the village to attend a hospital. And if that mother also sends 120 cedis to a doctor in the village for some medical care, that also is going to be taxed. So all of these things are going to compound hardships, and even let us not underestimate the hardship that is in the system.
So for you, Hadi,
leading to the increase in food prices.
Yeah, for you, Hadi, just a second. I mean, for you, Hadi, and of course the Economic Fighters League, and you're doing this together with Fix the Country. You can't find a single thing in the budget to lend your support to.
Evans, we think that the budget does not give any hope. The budget, and I'll give you a number of examples. For instance, we have been talking a lot about, for instance, the structure of the economy. And this is one of the areas that politicians have mastered to deceive the people. And I'm sure you've heard the phrase, the Gadgetsburg economy. They will come and talk about Gadgetsburg economy. We want to change the economy. We want to change the structure of the economy. This and that and that. But in actual fact, they have kept the structure of the economy intact because they benefit from the rot. And I'm talking here about the upper class, both MPP and NDC upper class people. Because NDC comes and it is the same results, it's the same outcomes. And MPP comes and it is the same results, it's the same outcomes. The ordinary Ghanaians are the people who consistently suffer.
How do you say you're doing this protest with the Fix the Country? There's a fundamental
the economy continue to be in the hands of foreign multinational companies.
Hadi, there's a fundamental question that comes up with your partnership with Fix the Country, and you believe in what they stand for. You believe this country needs fixing. How do you fix the country without taxes and revenue, for example? If you don't want the taxes, you don't want e-levy, what is the alternative? How do you fix this country without that?
Absolutely. I'm very happy for this question, Eva. This question further cements your experience as a very brilliant journalist. Now, we do not, in any sense, say that government has no right to raise revenue. But in our press conference today, we made it very, very clear that there are several ways in which the government can raise revenue in a pandemic, in a crisis where people have been hit, their jobs have collapsed, the businesses have collapsed, and jobs lost. The thing to do to raise revenue is not to pay more taxes. The thing to do, the alternatives that we have offered are many. One of them is, for instance, a relook at the excessive and discriminatory pay structure under Article 71 of the 1992 Federal Constitution. Under this article, so-called Article 71 office holders are entitled to huge salaries in addition to huge allowances for things that they are already being paid to do for their huge salaries. But even after these salaries, let me read to you some of the things that, for instance, the Prof. Nchiamua Bedu report gave to MPs, apart from all these huge salaries. And I'll come to the figures. One is free accommodation or 20% of consolidated salary in lieu of official accommodation. Car loan, 60% of which will be paid by the taxpayers' money. If there's no revenue, why are we giving car loans and paying 60% for it? The interest on the loan will also be paid by the taxpayer. And at the end of everything, the MP is entitled to keep the car as his personal property. 5% consolidated salary for security, installation grant equivalent to 2 months' salary upon assumption of office, 30% of salary as incentive for committee chairman, and 25% of salary as incentive for committee members. The work of Parliament includes committee work, but we have to give them 30% of their salary as incentive to sit and do their work as members of Parliament. Then free medical care for the MP, his or her spouse, and 4 children under 18 years. Resettlement grants at the end of their tenure.
Yeah, Hadi, that list is pretty long before you even come to how much the recommendation was for them to pay. But I don't have time for all that. But let me very quickly, have you written to the police already on this protest on Friday?
I'm trying to tell you the alternative ways.
Yes, I understand that. So in other words, cut the spending.
So the Auditor General has said that $12 billion Ghana cedis was lost to irregularities in 2020 alone. This is money that can be recovered and used for development.
Okay, I hear the arguments you've made. Just for quick clarity, this protest is Friday. Have you already written to the police to notify them?
We have notified the police according to the law. And I remind my fellow citizens that we do not require permission from the police to demonstrate. We have done what the law requires us to do, which is to notify them at least 5 days before, and we've done that. They called us for a meeting today. We went for the meeting today, and we had a meeting. They as usual, requesting us to change our date and our route, and we are not going to acquiesce to that request. We cannot acquiesce to that request. We cannot change it. The 26th of November, the demonstration is going to happen, and we are calling on all Ghanaians to come out in their numbers at Accra Tema Station at 8 a.m. We are marching straight to Parliament House to instruct them into their faces as people that we have employed, who are sitting on our largesse and who are getting all these benefits and privileges on our account, to reject the budget, because this budget does not represent our interests.
Okay, thank you very much, Hadi. So that's Hadi there. Hadi Yakubu is with the Economic Fighters League, and they, together with the Fix the Country campaigners, are embarking on this protest on Friday. He says the police have requested that they change the date and on the route they're going to use, but they will not budge. Well, it's up to the police to decide what to do with that particular, including they have an option to go to court if indeed they believe they cannot provide the protection on Friday. We'll wait to see how that pans out. But you've just had the argument there about what the Economic Fighters League believe to be the unfair bedding sharing arrangement between the governed and the governed. So let's listen to one of their own, a politician. He's also a senior figure among the governing party in Parliament who believes the government and the political class generally must first show leadership in taking cuts to the benefits they currently enjoy before demanding that the rest of the citizens carry the budget burden. Listen to Kweku Kwati, the chairman of the Finance Committee in Parliament and former Deputy Finance Minister.
We should also look at expenditures. We should look at expenditures, and I have already said that in looking at the expenditures, charity should begin at home.
Where?
We, the political class, we must put our, there has been a lot of discussions about Article 71 office holders, our remuneration and all that. I hope that as we move, that we can have the political consensus that in reality, it doesn't come to much because we are not that many. But sometimes it is good to do that in order to signal to the population that we, the leadership, we ourselves have started. And then we can begin to look at all those people, for instance, in the government payroll, who go to work and do little.
Okay, so specifically for the political class, what are you suggesting that they do?
I think Article 71 office holders remuneration, for instance, the current arrangement when the executive determines that of the
legislature.
And you guys have called it scratch by the back, there's nothing wrong with creating a body under the Fair Wages and Salaries Act and let them determine, with the same spirit that they determine public sector wages, let them determine that of the leadership. I also think that we must cap the number of members of parliament, for instance. The number of parliament that in the past, the NDC administration comes, they create districts, the Electoral Commission operates on some principle that one constituency cannot contain two districts, and we keep creating the constituencies and creating the number of MPs and the associated costs. Somehow, I would be happy that as we discuss these matters and tell the public that, look, the taxes are not, after all, you cannot tax yourself out of poverty. And that we are also going to have to make some hard choices about expenditure. Then we can have that discussion. And when we have finished, I think this culture that has now started in the public, that every community now wants asphalt. And the way we have been playing the game, it makes a lot of sense for the politician to continue providing the asphalt. And a lot of the road projects you would see are being constructed with loans. The point I'm making, and I conclude on this, is that you cannot go on tax. You must cut expenditure. Most of those points are legitimate.
I mean, when you say that the political class must show leadership, I wonder, in the immediate short term now, on the back of this budget, do you think, at least in signaling the executive mainly, because this is an executive budget, so to speak, would you recommend, as some have suggested, that currently we should see some cutting within the executive, wherever they can find
I'll be happy to see it. Honestly, even for members of parliament, I'll be happy to see it. I really don't mind what my colleagues MPs will think or my colleagues in the party will think. Whatever it is, I listen to people out there and I hear the increasing disconnect between the government and we political leadership.
So that's Kweku Kwati, former Deputy Finance Minister. He's also the chairman of the Finance Committee in Parliament. I want to bring in right now Franklin Cudjoe, a founding president of Imani Africa. He's also, of course, he shares thoughts on these matters with us on a regular basis. Mr. Cudjoe, thank you for your time here on News on Top Story.
Good evening.
You had Kweku Kwati in there. Ironically, he happens to be the immediate past Deputy Finance Minister and the chairman of the Finance Committee. What do you make of his thoughts?
Well, it isn't really ironic. I think that should be the norm, that there must be democratic centralism. And within that particular, democratic centralism, there must be the opportunity for people to diverge in terms of ideas, values, and principles. So, Honorable Kwati has been known to speak his mind. You may say he may be a latter-day convert, but I think this is what is supposed to happen. So I'm not entirely surprised he's making very frank, brutally honest remarks concerning the management of the public purse and indeed the questions around taxation and expenditure.
I mean, the principle he expresses there, that we have a budget now. We've just, illustrated the opposition to the levies and the budget in itself. But he espouses a principle that, in essence, says he hasn't seen the political class, the government, the executive, show to us all that he had taken leadership in carrying part of the burden before they pass the rest on to us. You agree with that principle?
I wholeheartedly agree with that. I mean, the budget seems to be on a trajectory of expenditure with little regard to the way some of the cuts or some of the value for money considerations should be made. And he's touched on the issues of personal emoluments. I also see questions around why we should be having teacher training allowances still on the books when clearly you are feeding people who want to be good teachers, and at the same time you are giving them money for teaching them to become teachers. I mean, that's a big hole that is creating in the economy. So value for money considerations, that should be, for instance, reconsidered and wiped off. Of course, the cost of infrastructure projects. Time with that number, we've heard about procurement shenanigans, and exactly what is being done, we don't really see. So contracts seems to be inflated. The execution sometimes become poor, and eventually we get ripped off twice. I mean, he's talking also about personal emolument. I totally agree with that. I also do not see the sense in some of these, what I call the IPEP project. We haven't had real value for money, even though we've been told that a number of things have been done. It appears as if once you do not get a report on how some of these investments or some of these expenditure patterns are looking, then it becomes very difficult for everybody to accept that there must be an increase in taxes. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying we should not pay taxes, but I think it's important that before you ask people to pay additional taxes, there are questions you need to ask concerning how you are spending the current pot of money that you receive. Some people have suggested that the possibility frontier for the current or existing tax handles could be looked at, for instance, so that we can move from the 13 or 14% to GDP to almost 21 to 22%. But be that as it may, if the argument has been made by the Finance Ministry that the e-levy, for instance, is a democratic way of ensuring vote pays, I think it behoves on the same ministry to give us some breakdown of how, for instance, the COVID funds have been spent. Sorry, excuse me. We haven't heard quite a lot from that conversation. And I think we've been asking questions, so that even though COVID seems to be our nemesis right now, it has also brought us some blessings. And we cannot take that away from the conversation as well. So Honorable Captain is right. Conversations around tax cuts, conversations around personal emolument review, and conversations around value for money, eventually for all government project programs and policies, is the right thing to do.
Well, I'm grateful, Franklin Cudjoe. Franklin Cudjoe is the founding president of Imani Africa. What's your own take on this? Do you expect to see cuts in the emoluments, salaries, and benefits of Article 71 office holders, government appointees, and members of the executive? I wanted to share your thoughts with me on this. 055-1111-997, as the chairman of the Finance Committee is asking for tonight. Your thoughts on Newsnight. Now, still ahead here on news.